Organissima, New York. Your exotic skin, hair, and beauty source, and your one-stop shop for all your natural and organic skin and hair care, featuring authentic organic Moroccan oil and prickly pear seed oil and much more. Bringing you only the best, straight from the source and proudly produced in the USA. So what are you waiting for? Shop today. Organissima, New York. Your beauty is our duty.
Folks, welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, with your host, Hurricane H. New day, new show, great topic, a very important topic. It's a live topic. I think that everybody watching and listening right now could relate to it one way or the other. And with me, my guest is changing lives, changing families, helping people live better in a way. You hear this expression, living better, in a lot of contexts, but in this particular one, you'll see what I'm talking about when we start the discussion. She is the founder of PlanSimple, and her name is Moran, and she is literally going to help us talk about some important things at home and at work and everywhere. She is going to talk to us about life balance, and we hear about that all the time. Life balance. What does that mean? And we get topics, discussions about this all the time at work, TV programs, blah, blah, blah. But what does that mean? And it's important because we don't just work. We have to do other things. And sometimes you are demanded to do certain things at work, but you have also other work functions at home. Doesn't matter. But women specifically, they do a lot of that, juggling. So today specifically, we're going to have that discussion with Mia. Mia, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh no, this is I'm excited as well because it is a topic that I've wanted to actually tackle and address because I always admire women in general, who are committed to their families, to their and I'm talking families, any type of situation, yeah, as well as their work. And it is a very difficult task to do. Like if you don't have someone in your life and you're just meeting with someone every now and then, it's one thing. If you have a family and you have commitments, it is a tough and jobs demand things from you. And so you have started a company to help people kind of organize, women specifically to organize themselves. And by the way, this is not just about women. This is actually, we're going to talk about men as well. We have a big part of this balanced life, concept. So Mia, let's talk about you first, your background, and how it all started and where did you get to come up with this concept? Because it is a beautiful concept. It is a needed concept. And so thank you for doing it.
Oh, you're welcome. So I'm a graphic designer by trade, but I would say I was born an entrepreneur. So what happened is I don't know. I don't even know how I got through school, to be honest with everyone listening. Like it was not my place at all, but somehow I made it through. And somewhere in the midst of talking my way into a college, I realized it wasn't for me and I left and I went home and I just figured out how to work and get to some of the meaning that for me, school didn't give me a lot of the meaning stuff. I was a seeker and I wasn't finding any of that. So I spent some time doing that, at which point I fell in love with design and I ended up going to art school. So I ended up going back to college, but I went to art school and that's really where I found my path. And I'm telling you all this part because I ended up in a job for like a year and realized that wasn't for me. And I started my own design firm. So I started a company early and I had met my now husband when I was in high school. So like I already had somebody who I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. I had a company and I ended up in my late 20s starting to have kids and I have 3 teenagers now, but that was then. And so I had this moment where I had this thriving design company. I had married the man of my dreams. I'm still married to him. We had even bought an apartment, which I did. That wasn't even in my dreams. I hadn't even known I could do that. And I had these 3 beautiful kids who I hid behind. They were all under 5. And I just remember one day, sitting at my desk and thinking, oh my gosh, I got it all. This is such a privilege. I feel so lucky. Like, how is this happening? And then I just remember like my heart sinking. And I looked across the desk at this stack of coffee cups. And I was like, oh my God, I have had 7 cups of coffee since 9 a.m. And it was probably like 2. And I was like, first of all, like, how is that possible? How have I gotten anything done? Why am I so freaking exhausted if I've had this much caffeine? They tell you at Starbucks that their caffeine is like extra. So I should be like, flying high. And like, why am I so miserable? Like, that was really what I got to that day. And I was like, what on earth is happening? Like, I knew at that time, like, I wanted to be grateful. I wanted to be appreciative. And I was all those things. And I felt something was missing. So what I realized was missing was my health. And so I was in this phase where it was like really busy with work because I was growing this company, and it was really busy at home because I had 3 kids under 5. And my body, like, I had gained 80 pounds during my pregnancies. Like, I was drinking too much coffee, clearly. Like, no one had ever, like, I had never learned how to cook growing up. So we were getting a lot of takeout, like nothing was good. And so in that day, I was like, all right, I got to get healthy. And so that just like that conviction just started me on this path of, all right, what does that look like? And it was like one thing led to another. And I got healthy, I say in record time, but it was more that I was focused, and one choice led to another. And I just like kept going. And I don't even know how I don't know how I did it looking back, because I changed a lot really quickly, but it was like confidence and conviction that this is what I needed to do right now, despite what, the world was telling me was possible. And, I got really healthy really quickly. And then at the point that I did that, I was like, well, wait, I have to bring my family along. Like, what's happening? Then I started really questioning this idea of balance. And when I really started to feel imbalance, I was like, why is no one talking about this? Like, as an entrepreneur, that must be my next step. And so that got me, one thing led to another. There was a book in there about food, but eventually I landed on this idea of, how do we balance work and family and our wellness? Because we've never been asked to balance this much before, men and women. I happen to focus on women because that, I had to focus on something to have a smart business, but really all of this is universal.
Well, yeah, thank you for sharing that. There's a lot in what you just stated there. And I want to just go back to even the beginning. And just because you stated something that was very powerful that people can benefit from. The idea that you went to school, but it didn't jive for you. It wasn't the right frequency and the right vibe. And you did, you did leave, but you were trying to find who you were and what would work for you. And that's that I want to just highlight that point for people who are listening, because not everybody is cut out the same way. We all have different ambitions, different personalities, different just tendencies, right? And the idea is that, yes, there is a school system, there's a whole thing. Sometimes our parents tell us what to do and how to do it, and then we follow through. But then when you discover that it's not for you, you have to make a decision. And sometimes it's for the right reasons, and it is the right reason for you to discover what's good for you. Because if you don't, you could be very miserable for a long time.
Yes.
Because you're going to wind up doing something that is not where you're not happy and not going to find yourself. And by the way, statistically, a majority of people actually do go through a program that never actually work, or they can even find a job in the career path. And it is just amazing, but it's reality. We all know that you can't get a job without experience. And so how do you get experience if you don't get a job in the first place? And that whole cycle continues. And but if you're not happy doing what you love, you're never going to be giving more and performing more. So I just wanted to highlight that. And the fact that you went back to something that you enjoyed, that was great, because that built up you. And then you added another element that's important for our audiences to listen to. I mean, again, we're going to talk about the life balance, but this is just as important because it is part of how you synchronize yourself, right? It's understanding you in the first place. I think that's important, right? And then I'm not but to work for someone. See, you discovered that's not you.
Yeah.
Again, that's the other thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think it's not something selfish when we want to do this, me, myself, and I. It is important because at the end of the day, no one really cares. It's you first. And you as important because you're going to impact everybody. And we're going to talk about how that life balance is impacting everybody in your life. So you are it. And so you need to be in a very smooth operating functionality and happy. You discovered something that was you, which is arts and design, and you started to work, but it didn't take long to discover again that I don't want to work for anybody. And you know what? Frankly, we hear this more recently than ever. There's a
Right.
tendency, a trend where people are like more like, I don't want to work for anyone. I want to work for myself and I do stuff. And with technology today, with social media, with all the stuff that's available, there's opportunities that are driving. You're in the graphic art design. I mean, there's a lot of freelancers in that space, and it works, right? So, but again, the message here is more about you need to know who you are. You need to see what drives you, what motivates you, what makes you happy, and you got to go for it. I'm sure it wasn't easy. I'm sure it's not as simple. Just I'm gonna just drop everything and go. But technically, it is that simple. It's just that you have to balance the financials of it and things like that. You have to figure out a way out, but you can. You're not stuck to anything. You can restart yourself any given day, but do the right thing. And I love what you said about you had it. I mean, you were able to marry the man of your life, the person that was with you all along. You had the perfect family, but now you were an entrepreneur. And this is where we get deep, right? Entrepreneurs, unlike what people think, when you work for someone, you have a job, you have tasks, you go in, you come out. Yes, you're robotic, and it's also draining, right? But people don't realize how hard it is to be an entrepreneur because you are in charge of everybody and yourself and everything. And God forbid something doesn't work out, you're not working for someone. You are working. It has to work. It has to work out. So it's important now, which means that we give more. And by the way, again, this is whether you are an entrepreneur or just an employee. The impact is almost the same, but either way, the balance. Again, maybe some people will argue the opposite, that as an entrepreneur you get a lot more work and a lot more crazy and more hours, because people think if I work for myself, I'm going to be on a cruise ship every day or a yacht, right?
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
I literally had a laptop in the hospital after birthing all 3 kids. I have to admit, it's not something I'm proud of at all, and something I would probably do different today, but that was the truth.
but Mia, that's exactly right. You are in charge. That's the thing. Like when you're an entrepreneur, not only you have you, but you have people, either your clients, your employees, the people that work with you. You're responsible for all those. So it's like when you're in management, right? It's not just about you. Now you're in charge of a lot of people. So instead of dealing with one person, you're dealing with many.
Yes.
And so it's the same concept. And then you just have like a job you can move, you can drop and go and get the same job with better pay. You have a business. You can close the business, but it is not easy to just start a business and build it. It takes time and momentum and so on and so forth. So the work, the energy, it's burnout. And I think that's a big word. We all kind of at a degree or another time of our lives, if you're working in a career path or as an individual entrepreneur, you will find that your health is going to be affected, period.
Yeah.
Now, we are on a health show and a wellness show, and health is everything. If you lose your health, how good can you be doing whatever you're doing? Nothing, right? So thank you for sharing that with us. And I just wanted to kind of dissect a little bit of it because I think it is a good foundation for our people. So now you discovered that, hey, I am trying to do good for me. I'm organizing myself. This is my next chapter. And now you started a whole new chapter, which I believe it is your calling, because you are helping people now. You are changing lives. I just mentioned a few items where you need to have some sort of a stop moment and different time frames. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure your health is really not suffering. And we all do that. You talked about coffees and multiple cups, you're not really, you're not feeling good. Half day. And by the way, as an entrepreneur, 2:00 is probably not even a half day. You're still going to run a few more hours. It is what it is, because you have clients, you got this, you got that, and you have to be responsible for everything. So then you are a married person, you have children, so that means you have to take care of all that business at home, and everything has to still be coherent at home. Not you can't do it half. You got to do it right.
Right.
And one thing you said, we ate a lot of junk. I mean, you didn't say the word junk, but I call it junk.
Absolutely, junk. It was definitely junk.
Yeah, but that's the thing, like, because you're not you're not cooking, correctly. You're not prepping meals correctly. You're not balancing. You just like whatever comes on, you pay, you get. A lot of salt, a lot of sweets, a lot of I guess oils and all the bad stuff for you. But you're doing it because you have no time to actually take and manage the cooking part
Yeah.
of it and stuff. And but that all affects your health. And the reason we all have this excuse, like, what do you do? If I ask someone right now, they'll be like, well, I got to work, I got to run, I got to do this, I got to do that. And then even eating sometimes can be a problem when you're working and you're like you have meeting after meeting after meeting. I've been in this position where you just kind of grab something and you're like munching between meetings, or you're like you just crunching stuff. You ate late, when you got home. That's not good for you. You went without water. How many days I've had personally, to be at the office and not drink because I just couldn't go to to get a bottle of water or something, and then you just drain yourself. So it is difficult. So your work is definitely an important piece of what needs to be more present in our world today. I think more of your work should be explored out there, and more of you, hopefully. But we have you, and that's important, right? So you're doing this already, and I love the idea that you could not find something of that effect available to you. So decide.
Right.
That's the other thing. Sometimes necessity is mother invention. You could not see it, you made it. That's it. And I love that. That's just you. That's the entrepreneur you. You see a need, you make it happen. Right. So let's talk about that. Now you started this concept. How does that work?
Okay. So first of all, I'm going to clarify, since we're talking to some entrepreneurs, I didn't start here. I started with the food because that was the piece that made an impact at the beginning. So I literally wrote a cookbook about the food and how to feed your family the food. Like that's how I started while I had the design company. Yeah. And then the book, because I'm an entrepreneur, I figured out how to make it a bestseller. So the book became a bestseller. And all of a sudden I found myself like on television, like talking about feeding your kids well. And one thing led to another. And somehow I decided it would be a great idea to take my 3 kids out of school, who at this point, so when it all started, they were, all under 5. At this point, they were, I think it was 2nd, 5th, and 7th grade. And I took them out of school and we went on a book tour for a year, obviously way before COVID. So in that, I was talking about food and feeding your family well and getting to family dinner. And I was talking to a lot of parents because I was traveling for a year and I was speaking at schools and all the things. And I just kept thinking I would end up in this room full of people who were like eating McDonald's and like just really unhealthy. And I just kept being in this room of like these beautiful people. And I'm like, these people seem like they know more about food than I do. Like, why are they at this talk? And I just like couldn't figure it out. In California, I'm like, everyone in California is like, looks like models. And I was like, what's happening? And so I just started asking tons of questions. And it was true. The people in California really do go to a lot of farmers markets, and they really do know about their produce, and they know about their green smoothies long before I was talking about green smoothies. And they drive a lot. So they don't have a lot of time. Like they were not feeling like they had any time. And so the common thing was I would be like, well, like, just take out your phone. Like, of course you have time to sit at dinner. Why wouldn't you have time to sit at dinner? And we would look and like, really, they wouldn't have time to sit at dinner. And that was one little string that I had, that even though I didn't grow up with a family that cooked or whatever, we always sat down for dinner. So I literally thought everyone did that. Like I had no idea that people didn't sit down for dinner. And so I just started playing. That was like the designer in me, right? I used to take apart people's companies and figure out how to put them together and make them make sense. This was me doing the same thing with people's lives. I was like, well, look, if you just do this and do this and do this, like, I wonder if that would work and you would find the time. So I just became like, it really became about finding time. And then as I like really started to step into the work, because, I was like sort of tiptoeing into it at the beginning. As I really started to step into it, I was like, oh, the thing that I really did on that day that I decided to change my food, and then the same thing happened when I decided to write a book. And by the way, I'm like 100% totally dyslexic. So the idea that I would write a book makes no sense. And also when I decided to take my kids out of school for a year, which also does not make sense that a dyslexic mother would be homeschooling her children for a year, and on a book tour. But anyway, but when I looked back at all those choices that made a big difference, I had gone through a similar process of like really zoning out the noise. Like it was like I went into my own heart. I really like came to an understanding from the inside out of like what was my next step. Like I really went inward to figure out the next step. And then when I heard it, when I like figured it out, I just took action right away. There was like no drama. It was just a little step though, like not a huge thing. I took a really doable step, and that kept happening over and over again. And I realized that that was what was missing. Like there is no right answer. Everyone's different, right? Everyone's going to have a different blueprint. That's why school and corporate is so hard, because we're all so different and those things are so formulaic. And so lots of us can't find our place in there. And there's nowhere really in any of those systems that teaches us to listen to our intuition or teaches us to like, find our way. And in fact, it's getting even harder because now, I'm sitting here with my phone, and just while I've been talking to you, like it keeps binging, because someone's tagging something on Instagram. Like there's so much noise. And so there's so much possibility, even of getting good at, like, there's so much, there's a lot of bad out there that we're getting, but there's also a lot of good. But just because it's good doesn't mean it's yours. Like, it doesn't mean that you have to go do it. And so it was really about like, how do I just like start from my gut, start from my heart, figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. And then things sort of start to line up and become way easier than when we're pushing and trying to like Jenga together all the things that were never really ours to do. Like we weren't meant, that wasn't our purpose.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I know. Sorry. There's always a lot.
No, but that's good. A lot. I mean, I like it. It's a lot of meat, right? A lot of good stuff. And by the way, thank you for clarifying, the transition. But that's also an important thing, because what people don't realize, everything that we do, you got to look back and say, like, what were the steps? And sometimes you don't realize that you went through different discoveries. And every time you discover something else that's needed, and you just add more and add more. And that's really progress. That's how you evolve in different things. I mean, our motto is time to evolve. And evolution requires that kind of mentality. Like, well, this is not working. Okay, this is a need. Let's fix this. Well, something else missing. Let's do this. And you're always questioning why. And the next thing you know, you have something, a new system, a new formula, a new program, a new planning program, right? And I love the idea that you said that you wanted to get that done, and you wrote a book, even though you didn't think that a book was something for you, but you did. That's the other thing. Most people sometimes they say, I'm not sure I can do this. If you want to do it, and it's going to make sense, do it. And you did. And it was a good, convenient thing, because to your point, cooking, or at least having a meal, is important. We have lost that tradition. I think now more than ever, people don't have the time to eat. Listen, I have a fight sometimes in my own house. Like I want everybody on the table, and it's almost like a buffet style. Everybody walks in, they get their stuff, they go to the room. I'm like, no, we got to sit. We have our moment. We need to be as a family, and we do this. We're losing that, and with the new generation, I think it's getting worse and worse, because just how it is. I love that everybody, there was breakfast, there was lunch, there was dinner, whatever it was, weekends or otherwise, if there was an opportunity, everybody was on the table. We all had a nice meal, and we spent time to eat the meal. Now, even when we eat, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's like doing a countdown on like who's going to finish faster, and then we're out, So it changes, over time. And it is great to actually have someone that is looking at and say, look, we got to do better. We got to eat healthier. That's the other thing that you mentioned. I love what you said about California folks are going to be happy today. Well, but it's true. It's a different mindset over there. And there's other states that do have access to the farming.
Absolutely. I didn't mean that in any way.
No, yeah.
Anyway, but I just kept being surprised. Like I kept thinking I would see really unhealthy people, and that's not who I was seeing.
So East Coast versus West Coast. I mean, depends on where you are. Things can vary a lot. And by the way, we're talking nationally here in the States, but we have Canada, we have other countries, and this show goes all over. So it depends where you are, folks. If you're watching or listening, this may not be exactly the same, but there are the similarities in every walk of life, in every place in the world, where you have some areas that are just inclined to do better in terms of the health versus others. Because of the nature, if you're in the business concept, it's just what you got to be running. Even here, you go out the suburbs, things are chilling. You go some states, they take the time as opposed to some other places. I'm in New York, there is no time. Talking about time is like, everybody's got the first excuse. I have no time. I have no time. We can make the time,
Yeah,
but that's the first excuse.
The interesting thing about time, especially as it relates to those things, like, so for example, dinner, right? Like, so we started that thing. And by the way, I think anyone can start this at any time. So there's no like magic to starting when your kids are 2. Like you can start as an adult to sit and eat, but there's so many like benefits around like digestion and connecting with the people at the table and helping the people who are, younger than 25 at your table feel the connection. And we don't really think about that because we're so rushed, but that actually saves time somewhere, right? So it like the digestion piece like saves time later and like makes whatever we're eating more useful to our health later. And the connecting is going to help solve a problem when one of those people at the table might have an issue later. Like that time that we've spent, that time that we've put in, like pays itself forward and bends time later. And so we forget like how it's all connected. Like time, we think of time as linear, but time is so not linear. And so all these things, like and again, it's not about doing all the things. So for someone listening, it actually might not even be about dinner, but it's like, what's that thing? Like for me, that was something that was pulling on me really strong. So it was something I put my heart and attention into, right? Like eating well was something that was at that moment pulling strong. And now I don't have to think about it so much. There's other things I think about, other things that pull on me and I prioritize. But I just think it's really important to note that, like, especially when we're feeling so busy, that sometimes in order to get unbusy, we're actually adding things to our schedule. It's just we're adding the right things for us. It makes no sense, like really, to say that out loud, but I've seen it over and over and over again.
No, you're saying the right things. There's no. It does make sense. It does make sense. We because we are so used to not that. We think that it's like now what's normal is not normal, is abnormal, right?
Yeah.
And like what's normal is not normal. And that's the question. And because we're just in a trend that's been kind of set, in a culture, we don't realize that what we've lost and how it applies and how we can change it. And sometimes, to your point, like adding that extra, like, oh, that's going to take my time, like, because I can't do the other stuff. But you're right, it's going to be helping you in a lot of ways. And if there's a will, there's a way. That applies to everything. And time, we have time. I mean, I have these memes that I see all the time, and I even reshare. You can make the time, like somebody says, well, stop watching TV and you can have time to do something. I can go to the gym, get up early and go to the gym. There's different things, like we have 24 hours, right? I mean, nice. We do have to have enough sleep, and we're going to talk about that because when we talk about running and rushing and the rat race, we tend to work 12 hours. And I love what you said about California. They don't have time because they're driving. Yeah. Long distances. You have that in commute. I mean, I believe me, I've had a job where I commuted 3 hours each way. I had another job where I had to commute, 2 hours each day, so each way, each day, right? That's 4 hours just on the road. And believe me, when I talked about food, sometimes I just had to stop at a Wawa's or whatever on the road just to grab something to drink or just snack on until I get home. And then I get home at 11 o'clock only to get up at 6 to go back again. Not alive, and so it's important, folks, to realize that what are you doing is it's bad for you, bad for the environment, it's bad for you. Because if you're not healthy, you're probably going to affect everybody around your family. You're probably going to teach them the wrong stuff as well, and that's just going to become a domino effect, and so on and so forth. So, Mia, you talked about writing a book. I love that idea about the cooking and the meals and stuff. So this was just more like, what's a healthy meal and to balance food, I'm assuming, right? To just have a decent.
Yeah. I mean, I was really about getting everybody in the household to eat more fruits and vegetables, which was really my passion at that moment. and it was really my focus. And, I've been thinking about what I would do with that now. I think I would go republish it and focus less on the food and more on the family parts of the book.
Part 2.
So maybe that will happen someday. Yeah. I mean, it's all in there. It's just like, it's like kind of a meshed, it's like a recipe book with like all the parenting tips. So I'd probably separate them out a little bit. So yeah, it was really about how to create a lifestyle, because when I got into all this, I didn't know anything. And so I started, it was before podcasting was the thing, but, and because I was a designer, I decided what I would do is make a magazine. That was my first really silly business decision, because it was the most expensive hobby ever, but I decided to make a magazine. And so I would interview all these, sort of health gurus of the time. I mean, this was like 15 or 16 years ago. Health gurus of the time. And the thing that really stood out to me is all of them said was that their kids did not grow up to be healthy. And I was like, wait, what? Like, why would you spend all that time and energy and not like spread the love? Like, that makes no sense to me. So I just sort of dove deep into that topic, and the book ended up being all the things I figured out in all those conversations.
But Mia, it is important, because I can tell you, I have this, I don't know, it's amazing, but our kids, and I'm going to generalize because I think it is actually happening. They don't have anything to do with fruits and vegetables. They like things like anti-fruits and vegetable. I don't know if it's just me, but I'm seeing that everywhere. I mean, I don't see kids of any age, I would say, group sit and eat, veg. I mean, I'm assuming some families are pushing and making sure that's happening. But the menus that these children, I mean, I watch in restaurants and places that what the orders are, and all I see is fries, burger, pizza. It's like the same 5 elements, chicken, nuggets, whatever. That's the menu. Very rarely you can see like a plate of a salad plate, or like some real vegetables on the plate and things like that. Even meat. Like, I have a fight with my son every day. Like, you got to get some meat in there. You got to get some veggies.
Well, and that's where this whole planning thing came up, of really thinking of things from the inside out. Because literally, if you put a like toddler or 5-year-old, like if they had never seen a kid's menu before, and you like sat them down somewhere and like had them go get their food, like they're going to pick the colorful fruits and vegetables, because orange and green is a lot more exciting than white and brown. Like, they're going to go for all that. They're not going to pick those. So somewhere, someone decided that this was the cool thing to do, like some marketer. And then it caught on. And so then we decided that like, this is the way, right? Like, this is the way that we're going to eat. And it's like, not even true. It's not even what they would pick.
That sounds like the Mandalorian. This is the way. I love
I've never even seen it.
But it's you're right. It's amazing how the mind trick is there, right? Like, our kids, to your point, if they are not conditioned to this, and they open up to one version of just like us. When I grew up, I mean, it was you ate food. It was, you have to have a salad. You have to have some vegetables on the plate, and you get some fruits. It's not there. And by the way, we have like 3 menus in the house, because my kids themselves, they don't even eat the same thing. And now they're gotten older, and it's difficult to actually change their behavior. You tell them, but there's a point, like to your point, they're not going to be healthier. And I can tell them, now you're not going to feel the effect. Wait until you get a little older, and things are not going to be the same for you. Your body is not going to function. You're going to have deficiencies and so on and so forth. And then you're going to wonder why you have those, because you're not getting the stuff that you need. Your nutrients are not there. It is a problem. And I think that's a problem that all parents are struggling with. Well, maybe most parents. Now, maybe
absolutely.
Parts of the world, it's a little different. But at least in the Western world, this is in the US. I mean, I know that our food, even the school. I mean, I just had this discussion with my son a couple of days ago. What's with the food in school? I mean, compared to Japan and some other parts, I mean, what's offered is 2 different, menus. Literally, one is healthy, one is not. And I'm not judging, but the fact is that's affecting, because maybe there's no budget. I don't know. But at the end of the day, you can spend the same equal money to buy some stuff that is healthy versus the non-healthy stuff. But that's what trending, that's what people want. Anyways, so we wanted to discuss those, because those are all important, valuable pieces of the foundation of today's, living healthy and all that. And so now you went to next evolution, the life balance. And that is the most important thing, because again, we need to find the time to eat. We need to find the time to do the right stuff. We need the time to vacation, to spend time with our, loved ones, time for your own health, for fitness, for wellness, for a walk, for movement. We kind of lose these things. But think the hardest part is like we don't know how to start. We don't know how to plan it. And I love what you have done is you are a designer. You help design things. You put all this stuff together in a prefabricated, pre-ready, like ready, set, go format. It's like, cookie cutter. Here, take it, go. Maybe not cookie cutter to that aspect. I'm assuming you can have varieties of options, but the
Yeah.
idea is you set up like if I don't know how to do it, I can have a plan.
Yes, there's a system behind it.
Exactly. So let's
Yes.
talk about that. How does the system look like? What are the different formulas? Let's talk about the flow planning as well.
Yeah, so really what it's based in is what we already started talking about, which is really starting from a vision, right? Like starting from within yourself and like what is your vision for whatever it is you're looking at. So whether you're thinking about your week or your year or your month, like what's the vision? Like what are you going toward? And I love guiding people toward like a 3 or 5 year, like what do I want then? Because often we get so in the weeds that it's like and all the noise is much easier, like it's much easier to get distracted by it when we're just like in today. But when we're thinking about what we really want 5 years out, usually we can connect more like to that vision that's really ours. And then we can start making choices based with that lens, right? So it's like, well, in 5 years, if I'm going to be there, then why would I do this now? Right. So it helps us with a lens. So we start with a vision. And then it's about really looking at what that vision looks like. Right. And so often the thing we do, so anyone who's a dreamer out there, you might already like be visionary, but you're probably in your head. And so often we keep a lot of the thoughts in our head. So it's about really like getting them out, getting everything on paper. And sometimes we get here, and this is also where the endless to-do list comes from. It's essentially in this format. So maybe you haven't connected with your vision to make your to-do list. So I highly recommend the vision part before the to-do list. But even with the vision, the to-do list can feel pretty daunting, especially if you're a big ideas person or you're really like wanting to create a good life for yourself, which I'm assuming all your listeners do. And so, but why that is because when we connect to a vision, like our brain assumes that it's done. Like our brain is like, yeah, that's my vision. Of course, we're just going to make it happen. Like it doesn't even know that it hasn't happened yet. So that's where that initial like overwhelm comes in, because then the second you're like, oh my gosh, I have to make this happen, it's overwhelming to it's literally overwhelming to our system. So like not in a bad way, in a very natural way, because that's how our brain works. And then we get clear on like the time. So like once you sort of have made some choices, it's like, great, well, when are you going to do it? And that helps anchor us in time. So I feel like usually what we do is we like choose between the to-do list or the calendar model. And I think it's really important to match, to me, like for them both to be present, because the listing model is the creative process. That's really getting it out of your head, making sense of it, like moving things around. But then we need to anchor it in time, because as you said earlier, we all live in the same 24-hour days. So we have to make sense of these things in that time to the best of our ability. And that really helps just like calm our nervous system. And the other thing that's a little different, like within the process, and I'll get to like sort of what we're thinking about in a sec. I'm staying really high level at this first pass. But the other thing that's a little different is that then we practice like following through, which I don't know is something we ever really think about, because it is a practice to show up to these things. We weren't taught how to show up to what we really want. We were taught how to sort of be cogs in a wheel, right? Like that's what school was. That's what corporate America is. That's what, all these things are, but we weren't really taught to follow through on our desires, and what we're really wanting. And so it's a practice. It takes practice. It takes patience. And we have to be able to learn from our mistakes, which, I feel like everything that we are talking about is, definitely can be for men or women. Sometimes I separate it out more masculine, feminine, because we all have that in us. But that quality of making a mistake and trying again is something that particularly has been hammered into girls. That if it's like if it's just like if it's bad, just walk away. Like don't try again. Whereas for some reason, boys get the message that they should keep trying. So that is one area, that follow through piece, that I think is really specific to women, is that we need to learn from what goes well and what doesn't go well, so that we can we can keep going around that cycle of like creating a vision, deciding, putting into time, and practicing following through. We need to keep going around that cycle. So that's like one piece. And then the other thing is that, yes, have this big vision, but then especially right now in this day and age, we've just come out of a global pandemic, or we're coming out of a global pandemic. And, if people are balancing either parenting or taking care of parents, or just like a busy life of all the things, then it's hard to think in terms of a year, which seems to be the model that a lot of us get put in. Like, what is your year goals, And so I like to think of it more in terms of seasons. So yes, we have this 5-year thing, but like, what are the seasons of your year? And for example, if you have kids in school, sometimes it's like school year versus summer. If you live in somewhere, like we both live in places that have 4 seasons. So if you live somewhere with 4 seasons, like literally people right now tell me in spring that they can't concentrate. And then people in fall are like, oh, I just want to get to work. And then people in winter are like, I just don't want to be seen right now. So like there really are flavors to seasons. We could also have seasons of our own health. So you could have a time when you're like recovering from something, or, a new mother or a new father, or, you can also have seasons where you have a ton of energy. And so it's like, we should respond to those. Like every season isn't equal. And so we're really always considering like, what season are we in right now, and choosing wisely from that, all the things that we can choose from our 5-year vision, like what fits in right now. Right. And then the last thing is always thinking in all the quadrants. So like a lot of models break this up into like 8 different areas of your life. I like to keep things simple, as you know, by the name of our business. So I think like food and wellness is like one category. Lifestyle, which would include family and travel and all the things. And our process is called the flow planning process. So I needed the word O to stand for what I would call like sort of the more spiritual self-care area. So we call that OM, but that's what that stands for, and work. And if we start to always be wondering about what piece of each of those are we moving forward in any season toward that goal, and toward that vision of what we want 5 years from now to look, we can start to create, we give ourselves a lot less opportunity to get stuck. Does that make sense?
No, you make super sense. And I'm listening to you, and I'm almost picturing a business plan for life. I mean, it's really like, your typical, it's that entrepreneur brand, right? You're thinking about like, you got to have the vision, then you got to plan it, you got to put it in the time frame, you got to have what the tasks are, and so on and so forth. You got to follow through with it, and you have to break it down in quarterly earnings.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. And but the really important part is that like, you've got to start from your like intuition. Like that's like the most important part. Like you have to start from your knowing, and sort of like, so the first step in even doing that, and why I love planning actually as a concept, is because all planning is deciding in advance, and we're making choices all the time. But when you sit down to plan, you have an opportunity to be like in a calm, positive mindset, right? And so you're not choosing what your month is going to be like, or your season is going to be like, or your day is going to be like from a frazzled, busy mind. You're choosing because you've given yourself the benefit of like calming yourself down, like whether you've taken 3 deep breaths, walked around the block, gone on a 5-mile run, like whatever it is for you. It's different for everybody, but you've calmed yourself down enough to be like thinking from the smart part of your brain.
Well, so let's talk about that, right? People are different.
Yeah.
And I love what you said about masculinity versus, you've differentiated a little bit that, in terms of what it is, as opposed to boys and girls. But even with that concept, you're right. I mean, it's just traditionally how we've been I guess, trained if you think about it, right? But in reality, there's no difference. Everybody can do the same. We have the ability to do it. Just that you almost been conditioned over centuries. This is how it is. We're in a different era, and things are just more, I guess, contemporary and sophisticated. And we can do this. So I love that. But the idea is that people are different, and not everybody knows how to plan. As you said, people just ad hoc. They do things. Like it's too much actually, kind of put a plan together. I mean, if that was easy, everybody would be like super organized. That's not the case, right? It is important to realize our limitations, but what you said is very simple. If you sit down and you start putting it, pen to paper, and you kind of organize it in that aspect of it, it also gives you time to kind of cool down and calm down and be collected, a little bit. Your thoughts are there, and you can just kind of proceed slowly. And it gives you, and that's the other thing. You plan. I love it when you said this is not a full year, seasonal. Let's talk about this season and how we're going to play one day at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 month at a time, 1 season at a time. And then you plan it correctly, whether it's, and again, we'll talk about that. I mean, in terms of like what those processes are and how they can change in terms of lifestyle versus, the type of food and so on and so forth. But not everybody will approach it the same way. And that's the concern. Well, not a concern. I think that's the problem that we have, because people are running. They're doing stuff, and then you come in and you say, you have an issue. Okay, I get it. But my issue is like, I can't do this stuff. I don't know how to do it. I'm overwhelmed. My work is draining me. I can't, have a good life balance. I'm having arguments. I can't take care of my kids. The school is calling. I got to go here, and my boss, and this isn't for someone that's employed. It's a lot of juggling. But, when you want to get started, that's the hardest part. People may have different levels of starting or commitment to start, because I love what you said. Maybe I can change my life starting today. And you said it yourself. You did it. Like, this wasn't for you and you needed to stop, and that was the day, the moment, right? But everybody needs to find that moment. And I think for our audiences, because they're so diversified, because they may be at different times, in their lives, in terms of age, in terms of career path, business, whatever the case may be, family status, those are all different variations, right? And again, this doesn't have to be, you could be a family person. You may not have even a family, but you do have the overall big family, which is your entourage, your neighbors, your friends, and so on and so forth. Your coworkers are your family sometimes, because we do actually work with people more time. And even if you have a business, you have your employees, they're still your colleagues and coworkers. So it's very difficult. How do you help people kind of manage that part? Like, the start point, because starting everything is difficult.
Okay. So the most important thing to understand is that actually what we're not really doing is time management. What we're doing is energy management. So take like the time out of it, because the second we start thinking about calendars and time, like we literally get all contracted, because nobody wants to just have a calendar full of things and feel like they have to stick to them. So really what we're doing is energy management. So the easiest way, I think, to start just even seeing how this could impact your life is literally I'm looking for a post-it on my desk. There's not one, but like literally have a post-it or a note, like the background, like anything. And just take like in literally 3 minutes, you can close your eyes, imagine your future self. Like, what are you doing 3 years from now? What are you doing 5 years from now? And just see what comes to mind. Something different is going to come to mind every day, because every day you become another version of yourself, or you have a little bit more ability to have a different picture in there. So every time you're going to think of something different, you're like, oh, great. Like, okay, I'm seeing that. Great. So what are 3 things that I'm going to do today that like really are in alignment with that future self? What are 3 things I'm going to do? And they don't have to take all day. It's like, I'm going to try meditating for 5 minutes tomorrow, or I'm just going to try actually having a piece of fruit for breakfast, or I'm going to see what happens if I just leave work at 5 instead of staying until 7:30 when I don't really need to be checking email anymore. Like whatever it is, like 3 things will just pop into your head, because those are your 3 things. And none of those things that I just said take any time. In fact, closing your computer is just making a choice and walking out the door. So it's like, it's not like they necessarily have to take a ton more time, but they have an impact. So the fact that you would meditate for 5 minutes is going to counter those 4 hours you're sitting at your desk in a way that you just can't imagine, yet. And so you just do those 3 things. And then at the end of the day, you just reflect back on what happened. And then you close your eyes again and you think of yourself, 3 or 5 years out, and you come up with the next three things, and they're not taking much time, but they're affecting your energy. And I like to think of it more. It's like, it's not like because when we talk about work-life balance, we immediately see a timeline, and it's like, all right, well, if I work 8 hours, that means I must have to balance life for 8 hours. But I don't think it's like that. I really do believe that like a really kind to yourself walk around the block at 11:30 because your back is hurting because you've been sitting in a chair can really balance out the 2.5 hours that you've been sitting doing work. It's not about time. It's about the quality.
Well, Mia, perfect. That is an excellent point. Because even at work, let's say you work for someone and you have performance that you have to tasks on the day. You do have break times, for those that are hourly, and if you're not, you do have the ability to do some stuff. I know we give the excuse, I was caught up, I was busy. But there are times you can find.
Yeah, so it's about catching that.
Exactly.
That's what we want to start catching in ourselves, right? Like, no, that's not true. It is true that you have to go to work for 8 hours. It's not true that you're too busy to walk around the block instead of scrolling Instagram. Like, that's where we have to start catching ourselves.
Yeah. No, it is real, because it's all us. If we are aware, I think the awareness part is a big piece. And I love what you said. This is not time management. This is energy management. It's how you flow it, how you make it work. It's like how you make the best of everything. You talk, even you can be standing at work and do some activity. You can just sit down, relax, to your point, and between meetings and take that break. There are things that we can do, and some people do that, right? But I think we all just so conditioned to like, this is the only way versus like finding a better way. And sometimes it's, again, being aware, being educated about it, at least learn about, there's more to do. And it's like, again, we joke about the matrix concept, but you got to open up to the reality that this is you.
I love the matrix.
I love the matrix. I mean, it is, right. It's either you're in the zone or you're clear, and if you're clear in minded, you will be able to operate differently. And so, and I was watching one of the clips on one of the shows, and the discussion was very simple. If you drop dead today, right, companies will post for your job very shortly after your demise. Unfortunately, that's just the reality. You walk out, you're expendable. The door, revolves, somebody else can come in and replace you. But your health, your family, everything is as important, and that's the most important thing. Yes, you got to commit to your job. You got to commit to your work. You got to do all the stuff. That's part of life. You have to have that. That's part of, you got to enjoy what you do. And of course, we talked about that in the beginning. Then you won't have to worry. But understand that, if you are not aware, you're not making these necessary changes, and to your point, energy changes or management to your lifestyle, you're not going to be doing good. And so that leads me to the next question, Mia. The contributions of your surrounding. I mean, there's you, right? You can do all this stuff, and I love it. It's all pre-planned and it's got a good flow. But then how do you work around the people in your life, and how you can get them to kind of accept that system, that change, and be part of it? What are their contributions?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of all of this is coming into understanding of what you actually can control, because we can't control everything. And so often when we're thinking about what we want or what we're planning for, a lot of my coaching actually is around, a lot of times people will bring things in that actually they can't control. So we are always looking at like, what actually can you do? Like, so for example, before this interview, I texted my daughter and was like, I had put the chicken and the sweet potatoes in the oven before. Can you take it out while I'm on the interview? And I hear someone in the kitchen right now, so I think things are happening. But like, so we can create, we have to communicate. But I find that that's so much easier to do when we're clear. So it really always, the first step is to be clear. And we can't affect all the people around us, but we can, when we truly like show up fully as ourselves, which is what all this work is meant to have us do. It's just like, it's contagious. It's clear. It often gets the result that we're looking for, that, the script or the you know, the way to like the other things aren't getting us there, because we're truly taking personal responsibility for our time, which most of us don't do.
Well, but here's the good news. There is you, and there is the work that's being done. There are programs that help. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, as little as they are. And you said something very powerful earlier, that when you started looking at this, there were no podcasts and things like that. Now there's shows. You're a
Oh my
podcaster
gosh.
yourself. So we want to highlight your podcast. So it's the PlanSimple podcast, right?
Yep.
So folks,
Everything has the same name. It's super
yeah.
easy.
Listen, you're keeping it, tight. I love it. And it's simple too. But really, folks, check out her podcast and the work. And I'm sure this hour is not going to be sufficient to get you all the nuggets, but I think there's more if you listen to her show. So yeah, when you get a chance, I'll have the link as well on the episode description. But so now the program you're coaching people, is this remote? Is there a program that they have to sign up for? What's the time frame that someone can be part of this program?
Yeah, so the way that we like work with paying clients is that we people come in and we call ourselves like the hand holders. So we generally serve people who listen to a lot of podcasts, who buy a lot of courses, are like learning and wanting to grow, and yet it's not always easy to implement. It's not always easy to follow through on the things that they're learning. And so everything we do is around like showing up and saying the 3 things you're going to work on this week. We have co-working sessions all day long, many of them, so that you can actually like come into focus. So we're teaching people how to focus and practicing focus. So it's all about it's funny because I don't like using the word doing, but it's about following through. It's about following through on your promises to yourself in a way that, like, if you're somebody who can't do that, because most of us weren't taught to do that, or most of us are living in situations that make it harder to do that. And so that is what we do in Flow. And sort of as a precursor to that, though, on our website, we do have a free course called From Overwhelm to Ease. And that's really about this initial concept of like how really a lot of this is about our thoughts and our feelings, and how that leads to our actions. And when we start to understand that, then we start to understand that overwhelm is actually a feeling. And if we go back and start to spend time more on our emotions and tending to that, then we can get to a place where we're making different choices, and we actually are able to choose from the inside out. So that's sort of available to anyone who's listening, and we would love you to come get it.
Thank you. Now the time frame for the program, like say I'm a parent, what would that be?
So this is a place where I made a really clear, intuitive decision a long time ago and got a lot of pushback actually from coaches who I was training with at the time. And now it's like a thing, like people are doing it more now. But we like to work with people for a year because, and we are pretty affordable for as far as like year-long programs go. But we do it for a year because I think that when we want to make a change, especially if you're somebody who's balancing a lot of things, it's like you need to understand how to grow your business, how to eat healthy, how to parent your teenager. You need to understand all of that in the different seasons, when there's school, when there's vacation, when your in-laws are visiting, like whatever's happening, like we're always getting these. So we're always waiting for the perfect time. And the perfect time doesn't really happen, but we can learn how to do all the things we want in a variety of different seasons and times. So that's the thinking behind it. Is not that we're trying to prolong anything, but in order to like really create time, I think you need to have experienced it in all the different kinds of seasons.
I love it because you do have to experience, to your point, you have to experience the whole cycle. Because what the way the winter works and your kids are in school is different than summer. So I love it. And by the way, again, you are an entrepreneur, you are an innovator, and you don't have to stand to the same formulas that everybody else. To each his own. I mean, some programs they go to 4 weeks, 2 weeks, 6 weeks, and so on and so forth, a couple of months. This is a life-changing, opportunity that requires a lot of planning, a lot of work, a lot of taking action, as you said, like following through. And it is not going to happen overnight. You need to.
And we love partnering with all the 4-week course people because like we help people. That we love holding people's hands. And so like, a lot of people are signing up for other people's things, even while they're in our thing. And yet now they have the support they need to actually follow through on those things.
No. Again,
Yeah.
every program has its own merits. Well, your program, you have to go through the season, to your point.
Yes, exactly.
It's different one season to the other. This is,
Yeah.
the kids are off school. What are you going to do? They want to go on vacation. They have activities. They have stuff.
Yeah, and you still want to be healthy and grow your business. So, and if that's the case, then you figure out how, and it just looks different.
Well, so listen, I love your concept, and it's great stuff that's available to people. And by the way, so now this is available worldwide, I'm assuming, because you don't have to physically be there. This is just a program.
Exactly. We work for pretty much every time zone. We just shifted things up because a few people in Australia joined. So that was the one time zone we didn't work very well for.
The people in the future for us.
Yeah.
I refer to it as the future people.
Yes.
But yeah, that's gorgeous, right? I love it. But that's the thing. Again, you're malleable, you're flexible, you're adjustable. And that's actually what we are. You're pretty much training people to do. You have to adjust, you have the seasons, you got to, make sure that you kind of metamorphose, yourself and your style across the timelines here. We're coming to the end of the show. Any advice for our audiences today? Or
I just think that, like what I was just saying, like there's never a perfect time. There just isn't. Like, and I think especially women are like, well, I'll just wait. Like I'll wait till my body's the right size, or I'll wait till my kids are grown up, or I'll wait until I get the next gig or whatever. And that doesn't usually happen first. What usually happens first is we need to make a choice and we need to start making things better. So if you're like, ooh, there's that thing and now I'm inspired to go do it, just go do it. Just take one little step. That's all that's needed.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I learned a lot. This was a great, discussion. I hope that people can learn from it. Also, people, please feel free to check out, Mia's PlanSimple program and her website. I will have that on the description of the show. And definitely check out her podcast, listen to it. I'm sure there's more, talks and exchanges that she has with her own guests. And, there's always going to be some valuable insights. I love this world. It's just amazing, the wealth of information that we can get from it. So,
oh my gosh!
Once you're into this, it's like this is a real drug, but it's a healthy drug. So thank you so much, Mia, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. As you watch the night come to a
yeah, it's funny, like it's
I'm like all of a sudden I'm in the darkness.
Well, you're on the East Coast apparently, because we have the same. I have the same here. So
yes.
All right. Well, listen, thank you so much. And folks, I hope you enjoyed this show today and you found it valuable. So stay tuned for another one. New day, new show, new topic with me, Hurricane H. We'll be talking soon. Bye for now.